Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today we'll start from verse number 262 of Surah Al-Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم. Mathalul ladina. Mathalu, similitude, example. The word misal in Urdu also comes from the same root. Mathalu, similitude, example. Alladina, those who yunfikuna, they spend. Mathalul ladina yunfikuna, example or similitude of those who spend amwalahum, their wealth. Fi sabilillahi, in the cause of Allah, in the way of Allah. Mathalul ladina yunfikuna amwalahum fi sabilillahi. The example or similitude of those who spend their wealth in the cause of Allah, ka mathali. Ka is composed of two words, ka and mathali. Ka means like, mathali, example. Same word, different formation. Ka mathali, like the similitude or example. Habbatin, a grain. Habbatin, a grain. Habbatin, a grain. Ambatat, it growed. Ambatat, it growed. Sab'a sanabila. Sab'a, 7. Sanabila, ears. Kamasali, like the example of a grain that growed 7 ears. Fi kulli sumbulatin. Fi in kulli, every, sumbulatin, ear. Mi'atu, 100, habba, grain. Then in every grain, every ear, there are 100 grains. So example of a person who spends his wealth in the cause of Allah is like a grain that is sown in the earth and it grows 7 ears, and each ear contains mi'atu habba, 100 grains. 100 grains. Wallahu, and Allah, yudaifu, he multiplies. Yudaifu, he will multiply, or he multiplies. Liman, for who? Liman, for who? Yashau, he pleases. Wallahu, and Allah, wasi'un, bountiful. Wasi'un, bountiful. Alim, all-knowing. The running translation would be, the similitude of those who spend their wealth for the cause of Allah is like the similitude of a grain of corn, which grows 7 ears, and each ear 100 grains, and Allah multiplies it further for whomsoever He pleases, and Allah is bountiful and all-knowing. So in this verse, the concept of spending in the way of Allah and how it's rewarded is being mentioned here. Allah says that whoever spends in his cause, Allah says, whoever spends in his cause is like a person who grows a grain, who sows a grain into the earth, and then it grows, and it grows 7 ears. And each ear has 100 grain. From 1 grain to 700 grains. So Allah the Almighty, in other words, saying whoever spends in his cause, Allah Ta'ala will reward him 700 times. 700 times Allah Ta'ala will reward him. And the two bounties, so two attributes of Allah the Almighty also being mentioned here, Wasi'un and Alim. Allah Ta'ala is the one who rewards and gives rewards according to a person's how he spends in the way of Allah. And Alim, Allah Ta'ala also knows what kind of intention when is made when a person is spending in the way of Allah. So Allah Ta'ala knows what we spend in the way of Allah, and Allah is the one who actually rewards us. So this concept is being mentioned here in a very simple example. Allah Ta'ala has explained this verse and the concept of how Allah Ta'ala rewards and multiplies when we spend in the way of Allah the Almighty. Then the next verse is, الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله ثم لا يتبعون ما أنفقوا منا ولا أذى لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. So this subject continues in the next verse. First, let's go word by word. Allazina, those who yunfikuna, they spend. Amwalahum, their wealth. Amwal and hum. This is composed of two words. Amwal means wealth, hum they, pronoun. Allazina yunfikuna, and those who spend in their wealth, fi sabilillahi, fi in sabili, way or cause, Allah. Allazina yunfikuna fi amwalahum fi sabilillahi, and those who spend their wealth in the cause of Allah, thumma then, la yutbi'una, la not, yutbi'una, they follow, ma anfaku, what they have spent. What they have spent, mannan, taunt. They do not brag about it, they do not bring it up in their conversation, wala azan, and do not cause any injury. If they have given their wealth on a poor to spend some money on a poor person, they do not remind him to bring shame to him. This is what is being mentioned. And here they do not taunt, they do not cause any injury. Lahum, for them. Ajruhum, their reward. Inda rabbihim, with their Lord, before their Lord. Lahum ajruhum inda rabbihim, for them is their reward with Allah the Almighty, with their Lord. Wala khawfun alayhim, wala and not, khawfun fear, wala hum and not, whom they, yahzanun, they shall grieve. They shall not fear, wala khawfun alayhim, wala hum yahzanun, and they shall have no grief. So you often probably when you read the Holy Quran, you have come across this sentence quite a lot. La khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. So the word khawf, which means fear, refers to fear of the past. And yahzanun is the fear of the future. Wala khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. They shall have no fear and they shall have no grief. Running translation: they who spend their wealth for the cause of Allah, then follow not up what they have spent with taunt or injury. For them is their reward with their Lord, and they shall have no fear, nor shall they grieve. So in this verse, Allah the Almighty has mentioned that once a person spends in the cause of Allah, only to please Allah the Almighty, they don't brag about it, they don't taunt, they don't get tired, they don't cause injury to anyone. And all they want to do is to please Allah the Almighty. And then Allah says, gives them the glad tidings in the latter half of the verse, that they shall have no, Allah Ta'ala will reward them, and they shall have no fear, no grief. So this is what we should keep in mind, when we are asked to give in the way of Allah the Almighty time and again, and in different tariqats, and people sometimes get tired and start saying stuff which fall under this verse. La yutbi'una ma anfaqu mannan wala azan. So we should always keep in mind that Allah Ta'ala always enable us to spend in the way of Allah Ta'ala only to please Allah the Almighty. We not only have in return the physical reward, which Allah the Almighty has given the example in the previous word, that it's like a grain which is sown in the earth, and then it grows 7 ears, and each ear has 100 grains. So that is the physical reward. But the spiritual reward is always going to be there in the hereafter, inshallah. Verse number 265, next verse. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى كالذي ينفق ماله رئاء الناس ولا يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فمثله كمثل صفوان عليه تراب فأصابه وابل فتركه صلدا لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. Again, the same subject is continued in the next verse as well. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Ya ayyuha, O you, alladhina, those who amanu, they believed. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. La tubtilu sadaqatikum. La not tubtilu. You render vain. You render vain. Sadaqatikum, your alms. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, la tubtilu sadaqatikum. O ye who believe, do not render your alms vain. Bil manni wal adha. Bil manni, by taunt. Bil manni, by taunt, wal adha, injury. Do not render your alms vain by taunting or by causing an injury. Kalladhi, like who? Yunfiku, he spends malahu, his wealth. Like the person who spends his wealth, ri'a an-nasi. Ri'a, by showing off, to be seen, ostentation or hypocrisy. All these meanings, basically, this words come under this word, ri'a an-nasi. by showing to be seen by men or by hypocrisy. Do not render your sacrifice vain. Wala yu'minu billahi. Wa and la not. Yu'minu, he believes. Billahi in Allah. Wal yawmil akhiri, and the day or the last day. Wal wa and al yawmi, the day al akhir, last. He does not believe in Allah and the last day. فَمَثَلُهُ, his example is. This word is composed of three words. Fa, mathalu, hu. Fa means so. Mathala, mathalu, example, who, his. So his example is kamathali, like an example of. Kamathali, like an example of Safwanin. Safwanin, Iraq. Safwanin, Iraq. Alayhi, upon it. Turabun, earth, sand. Fa'asabahu, then it fell on. Fa'asabahu, then it fell on. Vabilun, heavy rain. Heavy rain. Vabilun, heavy rain. Fatarakahu, so it left it. Fatarakahu, so it left. Salda, smooth. So all the sand or earth, whatever was on the rock, actually washed away. Salda, it became bare, smooth or hard. La yaqdiruna, la not, yaqdiruna, they have power. Ala shay'in, upon anything. Ala shay'in, upon anything. Mimma kasabu, mimma, that of, kasabu, they earned. Kasabu, they earned. Wallahu, and Allah, la yahdi, he guides not. La not, yahdi, he guides al-qawmi, people, al-kafirin, the disbelievers. Allah does not guide the disbelieving people. Running translation. O you who believe, render not vain your alms by taunt and injury, like him who spends his wealth to be seen of men, and he believes not in Allah and the last day. His case is like the case of a smooth rock covered with earth, on which heavy rain falls, leaving it bare, smooth and hard. They shall not secure aught of what they earn, and Allah guides not the disbelieving people. Verse number 266. وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَتَثْبِيتًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ كَمَثَلِ جَنَّةٍ بِرَبْوَةٍ أَصَابَهَا وَابِلٌ فآتت أكلها ضعفين فإن لم يصبها وابل فتل والله بما تعملون بصير. Same subject of spending in the way of Allah continues. Now in the previous verse, Allah the Almighty has mentioned of people who spend in the way of Allah by showing off, by not believing in Him. It's purely to show off. But in this verse, Allah the Almighty speaks of somebody who only spends in the way of Allah to please Him. Allah the Almighty says, وَمَثَلُ, and the case or example allazina, those. In the case of those who yunfikuna amwalahum, yunfikuna, they spend amwalahum, their wealth. وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ, and the example of those who spend their wealth in the cause of with their wealth, إِبْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, إِبْتِغَاء, seeking, إِبْتِغَاء, seeking, مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, pleasure of Allah. So those who spend their wealth seeking Allah's pleasure, وَتَثْبِيتًا, and to strengthen, min anfusihim, from their souls, min anfusihim, from their souls. Kamathali, like the case, jannatin, a garden, paradise, birabawatin, on elevated ground. It's like a garden which is on an elevated ground. Asabaha, it fell on it. Wabilun, heavy rain. So those who spend in their wealth the cause of Allah to seek His pleasure, their case, their example is like a garden which is located on an elevated ground and heavy rain falls on it. Fa'atat, so it brought forth. Fa'atat, so it brought forth. Ukulaha, its fruit. Ukulaha, its fruit. Di'afain, twofold. Di'afain, twofold. Fa'illam, then if lam yusibha, lam not, yusibha, it befalls on it. Vabilun, heavy rain. Fatallun, light rain. Then light rain falls on it. If the heavy rain does not fall on it, then light rain falls on it. Wallahu, and Allah, bima ta'maluna. Bima, what? Ta'maluna, you do. Basir, all seeing. Basir, all seeing. Running translation. In the case of those who spend their wealth to seek the pleasure of Allah and to strengthen their souls, is like the case of a garden on elevated ground. Heavy rain falls on it so that it brings forth its fruit twofold. And if heavy rain does not fall on it, then light rain suffices. And Allah sees what you do. So again, in a beautiful way, Allah the Almighty has explained the concept of spending in the way of Allah. In this particular verse, Allah the Almighty speaks of those who spend in the way of Allah, seeking Allah's pleasure. Allah Ta'ala reward them immensely. Now the last verse of perhaps today, which if the ruku ends here, yes, to verse number 267. أَيَوَدُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن تَكُونَ لَهُ جَنَّةٌ مِّن نَخِيلٍ وَعَنَابٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ لَهُ فِيهَا مِن كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ وَأَصَابَهُ الْكِبَرُ وَلَهُ ذُرِّيَّةٌ ضعفاء فأصابها إعصار فيه نار فاحترقت كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات لعلكم تتفكرون. أيود Yawaddu, does he desire? Ayawaddu, does he desire? Ahadukum, one of you. And one of you desires, an that, takunu, it should be, lahu jannatun, for him, a garden. Min nakhilin, from palm trees. وعناب, and vines. تجري, it flows. من تحتها الأنهار, min, from, تحتها, beneath it, الأنهار, streams. Streams flow. له, for him. فيها, in it, min kulli, from all kinds, الثمرات, fruits. In all types of fruits, all kinds of fruits are also in it. وأصابه, and it befell him, الكبر, الكبر, old age. وله, and for him, ذرية, offspring, ضعفاء, weak. So old age befalls him. He also have a progeny who is weak. فَأَصَابَهَا, so it smote it. فَأَصَابَهَا, so it smote it. إِعْصَارٌ, whirlwind. إِعْصَارٌ, whirlwind. فِيهِ, in it, نَارٌ, fire. فَاحْتَرَقَتْ, then it became burned. فَاحْتَرَقَتْ, it became burned with fire. كَذَلِكَ, like this, يُبَيِّنُ, he makes clear. Allah. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ, this is how Allah the Almighty, Allah makes clear, lakum, for you, al-ayati. Al-ayati, signs. Al-ayati, signs. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَفَكَّرُونَ, لَعَلَّكُمْ, so that you, تَتَفَكَّرُونَ, you may ponder. You may ponder. Running translation. Does any of you desire that there should be for him a garden of palm trees and vines with streams flowing beneath it, and with all kinds of fruit for him therein, while therein? Sorry, I'll just reread the translation. Does any of you desire that there should be for him a garden of palm trees and vines with streams flowing beneath it, and with all kinds of fruit for him therein, while old age has stricken him, and he has weak offspring, and that a fiery whirlwind should smite it, and it be all burned? Thus does Allah make his signs clear. Thus does Allah make his signs clear to you, that you may ponder. So we'll conclude here today. Inshallah, we'll next class we'll start from verse number 268. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Innaka hamidun majid.